Maxx Force is a new for 2019 launch coaster at Six Flags Great America in Northern Illinois, and it's manufactured by S&S. It features a powerful launch, 5 inversions, has a top height of 175 feet, and a ride duration of about 20 seconds when you hit the brakes. I had a chance to ride this a few times in late July, early August, so I'll be giving you my review in this video, describing the elements and giving my overall thoughts on the ride. Maxx Force has what is being called the fastest launch in North America, which is a very confusing way to say what they mean. The fastest launch in the continent is still Kingda Ka at 128 miles an hour, while this one only reaches 78. What they mean is Maxx Force is the most powerful launch in North America. It reaches 78 miles an hour in 1.8 seconds, while Kingda Ka takes 3.5 seconds to reach 128 miles an hour. So mathematically, if the acceleration is equal throughout Kingda Ka's launch, then at 1.8 seconds, it's somewhere between 65 and 66 miles an hour, while Maxx Force is all the way up at 78. Accelerator at Knott's Berry Farm is another powerful launch in North America, reaching 82 miles an hour in just 2.3 seconds. You probably don't need to do the math to realize that that is also not as powerful as Maxx Force. So while it is the most powerful launch, the questions are, can you really notice that it's more powerful, and is it better? I would say that it did feel more powerful than Kingda Ka or Accelerator, but only barely. I didn't think it was a big enough difference to make a big deal about it. However, make no mistake, these are all spectacular and very powerful launches, and I do love a good launch. The second question is, do you think Maxx Force's launch is better? It is a different type of launch. Kingda Ka, Accelerator, and Top Thrill Dragster use a hydraulic launch, while Maxx Force uses a compressed air launch, the same type of launch you have on Powder Keg at Silver Dollar City. While both types of launches are very enjoyable, I do prefer the hydraulic launch. So even though Maxx Force's launch is certainly amazing, it would be my fourth favorite launch, behind the ones on Top Thrill Dragster, Kingda Ka, and Accelerator. I also have to mention that while Maxx Force's launch is more powerful, it's over so quick. As soon as it starts, it's over. On Top Thrill Dragster and Kingda Ka, you have those extra couple seconds to really feel the launch as it's happening. Plus, you reach such crazy fast speeds of 120, 128 miles an hour. They may not be as powerful, but those speeds are so much more insane and far more exhilarating than 78 miles an hour. And it's also worth noting that the manufacturer for Maxx Force, S&S, has already produced a far more powerful launch over in Japan in the form of Dodonpa, which reaches 112 miles an hour in 1.6 seconds, 34 miles an hour faster in even less time. So they are capable of doing far better than what we got with Maxx Force. But there's no doubt that Six Flags Great America had a big part to play in us not getting something to that degree. It certainly would have been more expensive, and the park probably didn't have the space that would be required for a coaster that would be going that fast. But despite all this, the launch is still excellent. After the launch, you hear a loud blast that can be heard halfway across the park. You then rise up to the highest point of the ride, 175 feet, where you will complete what is technically the world's tallest double inversion. The first inversion does go past 135 degrees, which qualifies as an inversion, but you are nowhere near being fully inverted. You are then just barely pulled out of the inversion, and then you are just barely put back into an inverted state very briefly. It really does come off as a gimmick. To me, it felt like just a single inversion, while some people might think it didn't feel like an inversion at all. But does that make it a bad element? Certainly not. It just could have been better if they didn't go for the gimmick. I definitely prefer a top hat or an inverted top hat, but those have already been done. If S&S did one of those here, they would be accused of copying Intamin or Premier. We can experience the top hat on the Intamin Accelerator coasters, and we can experience the inverted top hat on Premier's Mr. Freezes. It is nice that S&S did something different here, even if it's not as good. After that double inversion, you drop back down and go into your third inversion, a low-to-the-ground heartline roll at 60 miles an hour, which is the world's fastest inversion. Now, this is not just a gimmick. This is awesome, and it was my favorite part of the ride. I even liked it better than the launch. Inversions with hang time are always great, like Full Throttle's loop or everything on Monster at Adventureland, but again, this is nice for something different, a very fast-moving, whippy inversion at crazy high speeds. Then you go into the final element, another double inversion, the first of which will definitely fully invert you 180 degrees, but once again, you are just barely pulled out of the inversion before you just barely get sent back into an inverted state for a brief instant. And in addition to that, the brakes hit hard on that final drop. So once again, hello Full Throttle. I do wish that they could have extended the ride out just a little bit further so that the brakes didn't have to be hit so hard on that final element. But on that note, I'm sure we all wish that this ride could have been extended by another, say, 10 to 15 seconds. It's only a 20-second ride, although it's being advertised as 23. That extra 3 seconds must be the time that you're rolling into the brake run behind the station. But you hit those brakes so hard at 20 seconds, you certainly feel it. That does make it one of the shortest roller coaster rides in the world. Typical durations are somewhere around 45 seconds or so, if you only count the high speed times. In other words, don't count the lift hill on the non-launch coasters. And those are also somewhere around 45 seconds typically. Over a minute is considered to be an extremely long ride. Around 30 seconds is considered to be quite short, even for launch coasters. If they were hoping to have another coaster like Top Thrill Dragster or King Ka, which are very short but mind-blowingly amazing, well, Maxx Force didn't reach anywhere near that level for me. It just doesn't have the speed or height of those two to leave me in shock. I got off Maxx Force thinking, yeah, that was good, but I wasn't in awe. So if their goal was to create a coaster that would challenge for the best in the park, then I think that they failed. But if their goal was to create a solid, mid-tier supporting coaster, then I think this was definitely a success. And for the record, that's the way I saw this coaster going in, so I was not disappointed. I would recommend that you temper your expectations like I did. Don't go in expecting best in the park. But having said that, there will be some people who will find this to be their favorite in the park, or maybe second favorite. And then some people will think it's quite lame. But I do see it as a mid-tier supporting coaster. It's my 5th favorite in the park, behind Goliath, X-Flight, Batman the Ride, and Raging Bull. One of the best things about Maxx Force is that it will help to spread out the crowds, as this park is one of the most crowded amusement parks you will ever visit. There is no such thing as a slow day at this park. There are always long lines every day, so more rides will always be a good thing here. Unfortunately, this ride certainly has plenty of downtime. It's a launch coaster and it's a new coaster, so that's a recipe for plenty of downtime. In my 3 days at the park, I did see it down a few times, and on my final ride, I had to wait out 2 downtimes to get that last ride before heading home. But on my first 3 rides, it actually didn't break down while I was in line, so I had good luck. Now, let's talk about the trains. There are 8 rows with 2 seats per row for a total of 16 riders. And despite there being 5 inversions, all you have is a seatbelt and lap bar, which is so awesome. No over-the-shoulder restraints, nothing to bang your head into, no vests, no shoulder straps, just complete freedom with your upper body. Now, for those of you that still have the mentality that all upside-down roller coasters have over-the-shoulder restraints, that is not true at all. In fact, I've ridden about 30 coasters that go upside down, yet all we have is a seatbelt and lap bar on those. So this is not uncommon, but I have also ridden over 90 upside-down coasters that have some kind of restraint around the shoulders. I always love an upside-down coaster with only lap bars, so I'm very happy to report that Maxx Force is indeed one of those. Unfortunately, the seat backs are ridiculously tall. There is nobody on Earth that is tall enough for their head to be above those seat backs. What this means is that a lot of your view will be blocked, and it's worse in the even-numbered rows. On the trains, there are 4 cars with 2 rows in each car, and those 2 rows are jammed up really close to each other, and the second row is not at a higher elevation than the first row. So rows 2, 4, 6, and 8 are all right up against the very tall seats in front of them, so those rows have more of their views blocked and will get much less wind in their face. So if you can't get the front row, which is the best row, then try for rows 3, 5, or 7. That is, if they let you choose. When I was there, nobody was allowed to choose for or wait for any row. If you didn't take where they told you to go, you didn't get to ride. I don't know if they're still doing that, but that was a turnoff. Fortunately for me, I did just happen to luck into the front row on my second ride. My first ride was in row 8, my third ride was in row 6, but then that fourth and final ride was in row 7. And I can say that the odd number rows provide a better ride than the even number rows, but certainly front row is by far the best. So the next question would be, is it worth the trip to Six Flags Great America just for Maxx Force? To that I would definitely say no, not if that's your only reason. If you have had a full experience at this park before and you're not missing it yet, then don't go back just for this ride. Wait until you're missing the park and you feel that longing to go back to the park as a whole. But maybe you're like me. I've been to the park before, but only with a couple half days. I didn't feel like I got the full experience, and I wanted that in addition to riding Maxx Force. If that's your story, then sure, go ahead and make the trip to come back. Maxx Force is certainly a nice bonus in addition to getting the full experience at the park. And of course, with all that, I'm speaking to people that would have to travel to get there. If you live in the area, then for sure, yeah, definitely get out to the park and ride this. So even though I'm not big into giving scores to rides, if that's what you're looking forward to, then I would say I would give this coaster about an 8.5, and that's comparing it to other launch coasters. My overall ranking, I got it ranked somewhere around number 80 out of 345 coasters that I've ridden. Now, while that might sound low, keep in mind that this is in my upper 25% of all coasters that I've ever ridden. And for someone like me who seems to like everything, including rides that most people don't like, anything in my upper 25% is certainly something that I like a lot. But I don't see it as anything top tier. So those are my thoughts on Maxx Force, but I want to hear from all of you. Have you ridden Maxx Force, and if so, what did you think of it? If not, are you planning to get out there and ride it? Let me know in the comments. Thank you all for watching. You've been awesome. Remember to be kind to yourself. I will see you next time.
Please.